Hey, Chipola Nation, I'm Rob.
I'm Smitty.
We want to welcome you to our fifth quarter podcast. Before we get started, as always, be sure to check out the right side of your screen, chipola.edu. If you are interested in going back to school to further your education or just to check out some of the different programs that are offered. Smitty, it is so good to be back, man. Talking football here. First off, happy President's Day to you. Happy President's Day to you, Chipola Nation. Hope everybody is being safe, celebrating it well.
And responsibly.
Yes, and responsibly, as always. Smitty, no more football for 6 months, man. I do not know what I'm going to do with myself.
I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Video games, Madden to hold us over, or the likes of.
Well, that's for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, what would be your typical off-season kind of get-through?
Dungeons and Dragons. Shocking, I know.
I took you for an Oregon Trail kind of guy, floppy disk.
I'm not that old.
Well, I'm not either, but anyway.
Even
Dungeons and
though
Dragons?
yeah.
No video games, no.
Well, it technically is a game.
Yeah, but isn't it a card game? I mean, are we thinking about the same thing here? Or are we in like opposite ends of the spectrum?
You're
here?
in a whole new different continent right now.
Apparently.
Anyway, let's get back to the
the aura in the room is messing with my head.
That's your fault.
So, man, no football for 6 months. The offseason is going to be really interesting. As a matter of fact, I'll let you kick us off. I believe on the way over here, Smitty, you were telling us that there are some key free agents from a specific team in the NFC that had everybody's attention this past season and last season that are set to possibly go to new teams. Why don't you talk to Chipola Nation about that?
Well, there are some few key free agents in both the NFC and the AFC. Mm-hmm. One thing I want to highlight is the teams that do not have free agencies currently at the moment, because those are the teams that I believe have the biggest chance to build something great.
That's a bold statement there. I'm interested to hear this.
Well, I'm going to start with the G-men because they can only go up from here.
Can they?
I mean,
because New York, New York, period, whether it's the Jets or the Giants, is one of those teams. Just when you think they've hit an all-time low, they find a way to just go deeper.
I mean, this is true, but they have Saquon Barkley, Devontae Booker, and Gary Brightwell still under contract for 2022.
So we know they're staying in New York.
As of now, according to NFL.com, that they are staying with the Giants.
Right.
Now, whether what they can accomplish in the draft coming up in April or May, I think it's April. Yes, it's April. What they can do with April, because they have a lot of top first round picks available.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, whether they're going to use them or trade them for some trade them in for some key players that they want to have in their core, that's up for debate.
And Smitty, that's an interesting take because Daniel Jones has been with the G-men for what, 2-3 years now, maybe a little longer.
Right. I think he is still going to finish up his rookie season. Maybe, I don't know how.
Maybe I don't pay attention to the New York Giants, so it's really kind of hard for me to understand.
Well, it's
where they're at position wise.
Right. The way I look at it is like the teams that struggle the most, they seem to have the most nothing to lose and all to gain during the offseason. Because offseason, whether they make it through the playoffs or not, that is when they have to buckle down and say, okay, clearly that did not work.
Clearly did not work.
Yeah.
Which would bring me to my next point. If you're a fan of any of these teams that we talk about on here, I just want you to think about this for a minute. You look at what LA did. We've talked about this on the show before. LA went all in. They cashed all their chips in, Smitty, and went and got some players, and they made a Super Bowl run. But as it stands up now, you remember.
But that was a huge financial gamble,
right?
And all that,
right.
Especially when you have to factor in the wear and tear and potential season-ending injuries that they had to deal with in the previous year or two.
Right, and you heard me talk last week about the longevity of the roster that you're building. It's great that you can cash in and find players to come to your team to fill much-needed roster spots where you're down. But the problem with that is a lot of these players are 10-plus year veterans, and a lot of wear and tear has happened on their body. So it's like, okay, you look at the Rams, to make my point. They cashed in. They got all these veteran players. Now, as it stands, you got Eric Weddle that came out of retirement and went and filled a much-needed roster spot shortly before the playoffs. They won a Super Bowl ring. Now Weddle has went back into retirement, so they're going to be down at strong safety or free safety.
Yep.
It's one of those two positions that Weddle plays. And then you look at their offensive coordinator. I want to say he took a job somewhere else, but he's gone from the LA Rams. So my point and my opinion still stands. I think LA is done, and it makes me question the longevity, Smitty, of the roster that you're building. Now, if you have been building for 10-plus years and you're constantly having to scrape and start over like the Dolphins, which we talked about last week, then something tells me that you need to look at your front office, look at your coaching staff, look at all the different factors that are playing into your either success or your failure.
Right. Now, no, this isn't against the coaching staff and all in its life, because they can only do so much if the administrative side of the whole team can do that.
Right, and I'm not necessarily, I just want to make this clear, I'm not pointing fingers at either specific side.
Right.
I'm just saying, when the machine is not working, find what's not working in the machine.
And it's not just one part, it could be multiple
Right,
as well.
right, but you need to identify the different parts of this machine that are not working. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yes. Speaking of the LA Rams, we're going to go back to the LA Rams for a minute. Free agents coming out of the LA Rams are Sony Michel, however you pronounce it.
I think he goes by Michel is how he pronounces his last name.
And you have Buddy Howell leaving as free agents from the LA Rams. However, they do have Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, and Jake Funk still under contract.
Timeout, Coach.
What?
What's his last name?
Jake Funk.
I'd go down
I am not making that up. It is literally on the website.
Jake Funk, if you watch this podcast, I'd go change my name. I'd go to the courthouse right now, my guy.
No. Don't listen to him. Okay? That's an awesome last name. Keep it. Make money off of it, please.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's don't listen to me. I mean, listen to a guy that has the nickname Schmitty.
Hey, don't dock the nickname.
Moving on.
Yes, moving on. Now, sticking with the NFC.
Right.
How about them Cowboys?
Them boys? You mean them cowgirls?
Well, they still have Ezekiel Elliott.
Who?
Elliott.
Ezekiel Elliott?
Hey, don't make fun of me now.
You seen E.T.? Elliott. You remember the E.T. movie with the alien?
I remember the E.T. movie.
You're not helping me out. I'm trying to lighten the mood here.
Look, the joke was bad, and you should feel bad about it.
Okay, we're just going to cut right here. We're just going to tell the director back there to cut. And we're gonna, I'm just kidding.
Try to have fun here at Chipola Fifth Quarter.
I mean, why film it if you can't have fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Dallas Cowgirls.
Yes. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard are still under contract.
Tony Pollard, that's probably good that they're going to retain him.
Yes. They've done some great things, but they just can't get past the wild card. It's almost as if something's there.
Well, it goes back to what we just said a few minutes ago. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Tear apart the machine, find out which parts are not working, replace what needs to be replaced. But the first step is you have to identify where the issues are coming from.
Yes.
So,
and let's go back to the bridesmaid of the Super Bowl.
Now, who is the bridesmaid of the Super Bowl? I am curious.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, heartbreaking. Got left at the altar on that one.
Right. Yeah. But they don't have any free agents out and about right now.
So that's a good thing.
Right. They still have Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, and Chris Evans still under contract.
Yeah, but Ricardo Allen announced that he's retiring. I think he was a strong safety for them. So that's
true.
And that may
no,
hurt
he did great in that Super Bowl.
Well,
but despite the loss,
yeah,
I mean they only lost by 3 points.
Right.
I mean that's a strong fight.
But you hate to keep making the jokes, but
I know.
I mean Eli Apple just. I mean, it's like you said. The more I think about it, and the more I go back and watch the highlights. Smitty, the more I'm convinced that they should have just benched him and brought in the backup. Maybe the backup would have given at least a little more effort than what they were given that last drive where Stafford had the momentum. And it's like, I don't know. Like, you don't want to say that a player laid down on the ball or laid down on his job or anything like that. But
No,
I don't know what Eli Apple was thinking. I mean, but in his defense, when you're backed up inside the 10 or inside the 5, it's really hard to defend, one-on-one. I mean, there's only so much you can do, especially if you're going to run a fade, to the back pylon, or if you're going to run an in or an out route. I mean, it's just difficult to defend unless you're going to have, a couple other backers in there in zone coverage.
And it really doesn't help me if you're going against OBJ of all people. He's the one with hands that can pretty much catch anything.
Right, but their prayers were kind of answered because remember he went out with that. I believe it was a MCL sprain, something like that.
Oh yeah, was it a sprain?
Yeah, I want to say it was.
He's fortunate.
It was an injury that he had the previous season, and had re-aggravated that injury, so they sidelined him for the rest of the game. I want to say that was shortly before the end of the first half, but then Cooper Kupp
took that weight.
I mean, he took the reins and he picked up the slack and done what he had to do. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good you think you are. It doesn't matter how much talent you have on a roster. I mean, winning is winning. And that brings me to my next point, Smitty, because I feel like we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the LA Rams. It's important to understand, dynasties, and it's important to look at the track record of which teams or which franchises in NFL history have a proven track record of putting key pieces in place and trying to build a roster that is long-term rather than short-term. So, Smitty, I have a list of NFL franchises with multiple Super Bowls, and I figured we'd break a few of these down. Coming in at number 1, you have the New England Patriots with 6 Super Bowls. I don't think it's any surprise where those Super Bowl rings came from. I mean, you look at the roster, not just Brady specifically, but you look at the defensive side of the ball, Brandon Spikes, Donta Hightower, and then you look on the offensive side of the ball, you look at guys like Wes Welker. They even had Randy Moss for a stint. Danny Woodhead. They put very seasoned veterans in place for a few years and was able to keep that team together to build some rosters. And then coming in behind them at number 2, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers with 6 Super Bowls. They had, 4 under the Chuck Noll era in the 70s.
Don't forget the Steel Curtain era.
The Steel Curtain. That was in the 70s, as a matter of fact, the Steel Curtain era. And then Bill Cowher come along and finally won one with them in the early 2000s to mid-2000s. And then here come Mike Tomlin in the 2010s. Or the matter of fact, the 2000s. Yeah. I need to correct myself on that. And they were able to win one with him. Dallas Cowboys coming in with 5 Super Bowls behind them. San Francisco with 5 Super Bowls. Green Bay with 4. New York, the G-Men, have a history, 4 Super Bowls.
That infamous 18-1 season.
Yeah. What was it, the kick heard around the world? The New York Giants had the kick. Scott Bentley, I want to say, was the kicker in the 91 Super Bowl that they lost. I want to say it was absolutely heartbreaking. No, it was the Bills. They played the Bills that year, and I want to say the Bills had a chance to put it away. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the Buffalo Bills, Scott Bentley, the kick heard around the world. That was right about my time. I was a little young buck coming into the world, but I remember going back and watching some of those films. Heartbreaking. Denver's got 3. The Washington now Commanders, Smitty, as they have picked a new name. Yeah, we're just gonna hold that there with 3. The Raiders with 3. Look, I'm trying to be real professional here.
I know, but
Commanders is really intimidating. But anyway, you have the Miami Dolphins with 2, Tampa Bay now with 2, Baltimore Ravens with 2, Kansas City Chiefs with 2, the Colts with 2, and the LA Rams have now added their 2nd Super Bowl.
And I believe the Miami Dolphins, one of them Super Bowls was that undefeated season.
And I want to say it was their first one. It was a 72 season, I think. May have been the 2nd season, but I'm not entirely sure. So, Smitty, there's a proven track record. Is the point we're trying to make on the podcast is there is a formula for success, and if your favorite team did not make this cut of having multiple Super Bowls, then I would question, why haven't changes been made? There is a formula for success, and you can say, oh well, one team's favored above the other one, the refs this, the refs that. But at the end of the day, just because you build a super team or an Avengers team doesn't mean that the roster is going to hold up. You got to understand the risk that you're taking.
Perfect example of that misconception is I think it was in the mid 2000s. The Eagles had pretty much built a advertised super team.
Right.
Had all these top players in their prime, stats upon stats upon stats, and they didn't even make it to the wild card, I believe.
Disappointing, to say the least.
It's not about how many great great players you have on a team is
Right.
is how they mesh together, how they cooperate, how they adjust. And
Personalities
so
in the locker room
exactly.
makes a big difference
It's
too.
not just the players. The coaches have to be on their game, have to make adjustments, have to give and take, and so forth, and all that. And the
Right.
administration part of it has to make sure they can work within in the realms of possibility. So,
True.
how do you think the New England Patriots have had such a dynasty in the beginning in the late 2000s and 2010s?
I mean, it all goes back to personalities in the locker room. I mean, there's several factors. We'd be here all day just talking about New England's formula for success. Bill
I mean,
Belichick-
obviously it works.
Right.
And
And you look at-
I hate New England Patriots,
Right.
but I don't hate them because because of all the stigma that they come with it. But
Right.
obviously something has worked. Kraft, Belichick, Brady.
They got
Obviously they worked something out within that whole dynasty that they created until Brady decided to, I'm going to jump ship.
Well, they all got on the same page somewhere because they have 6 Super Bowls to show for it.
And Brady's got an extra one with the Bucks.
Yep. So there's a proven formula for success, which is important to note. Smitty, I have some season predictions. These are early, but I pulled this from a poll on Instagram.
Before we get to that poll,
Yeah.
want to just spit out some
Go ahead.
NFL headline highlights here.
Go ahead.
Steelers. I can speak. Trust me, I can speak.
He can speak.
Steelers general manager gives Mason Rudolph the green light, the vote of confidence.
Timeout.
Yes.
Mason Rudolph got the green light over Dwayne Haskins Jr.
Yes.
Interesting. Which, I mean, it's almost.
So, as a fellow Yinzer, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on this?
Okay, you put me on the spot, but as somebody who is going into the 2022 season as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I would have to say that that's interesting. It's almost like picking the lesser of the two evils. Dwayne Haskins is just as inconsistent as Mason Rudolph is.
But Mason Rudolph does have advantage when it comes to experience.
Right.
Because
But
remember in the 2019 season where Ben Roethlisberger had to quit the season due to Tommy John's surgery. And Mason Rudolph in the first half of that year, he was actually all right.
Right.
And all that. Ever since he got that knockout concussion,
Right.
which was a bad hit. It was a bad hit. I'm surprised he was even standing and walking and all that with help.
Well, it's good if you're going to keep the offense centered around him. I would like to point something out that there's a lot of speculation that going into the offseason, Mike Tomlin's going back to the drawing board to change up his whole offense because Pittsburgh has a terrible offensive line as it stands. They need an offensive line. They definitely need a quarterback.
They're not the only team that needs an offensive line.
No. I mean, the Miami Dolphins need one, but Pittsburgh desperately needs an offensive line. The thing about Dwayne Haskins that I would argue is if the pocket collapses, which it's liable to do if they keep some of the same offensive linemen in there, Dwayne Haskins can really roll out and try to find somebody downfield. However, he is inconsistent, and it has showed in a lot of his previous starts. He didn't do much with Washington, and there's a reason why they traded him away. However, Mason Rudolph, it's literally like picking the lesser of the two evils. I say Pittsburgh does one or two things. You either go to free agency and see if you can get Winston for a year at a lower price. I don't know that New Orleans, now that Sean Payton has stepped down, I don't know that New Orleans will get Jameis Winston back. I could see a Jameis Winston move for at least a year, maybe a one-year contract just to kind of fill that gap. And then the quarterback class going into 2023, as far as the draft is supposed to be stacked with quarterbacks, I'm thinking Pittsburgh maybe goes that route, or maybe they just stick with Mason Rudolph because they don't have much cap space to work with anyway. Maybe draft a few young offensive linemen. You still got Najee Harris, so you got the run game to lean on. However, you don't want to lean so heavily on the run game.
Yeah, but they need more than Najee Harris on that run game because that run game was barely existent within this past season.
Well, you got Kevin Ballage. I mean, he's pretty solid.
Well, it didn't help that they threw 2/3 of the time.
Well, I mean, the offense was kind of centered around Ben. Now that Ben's gone, you're looking at a whole new dynamic to your offense. I mean,
which is going to be interesting.
again, there is no clear. I just don't think there's clear separation between Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins. Somebody may watch and say you're dumb. There's clearly separation. If it is, feel free to leave it in the comments. But I don't see much separation as far as talent between Dwayne Haskins Jr. and Mason Rudolph. Probably size would be one. And Dwayne probably would have a quicker agility. He could scramble outside the pocket, maybe get you 3 or 4 yards if he needed to, should the pocket collapse, which it's liable to do
right.
so.
Look, all right, rapid fire. Sticking with the Steelers.
Yep.
Brian Flores, with all the controversy going on in that ballpark.
Yeah.
He has joined the Steelers as a defensive assistant and linebacking coach.
I would have to, despite all the off the field drama. Out of his 3 seasons with the Dolphins, he had 2 very solid seasons, and he did build the team back in such a way where there was some talk about being playoff contenders and stuff. I would say I don't know that Brian Flores is necessarily a good head coach. I just don't think his personality fits that mold. I think he's more of like a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator type person. Definitely more so defense because of his time in New England under Belichick. I think he'll do well with the Steelers. I think that was a very smart move. And now I think Pittsburgh is in a position where they could draft some defensive players, keep a solid defense, give your offense at least 1 year to try to build. And I don't see no reason why Pittsburgh doesn't make it back to the wild card within 2 years.
And one more, going to the Vikings back in Minnesota. They are hiring Rams Phillips as offensive coordinator.
Really?
Yes.
So
the Rams going to have to fill in that gap real quick. But
Yeah.
I think they already have their destination for that spot.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the name per se.
Yeah, I think they went to the drawing board shortly after that move was
All
made.
right. What's this poll you've been?
So I pulled this poll off of Instagram, and it's a guy by the name of NFL Poll Snow is his name on Instagram, and I thought it was interesting. I figured we'd dissect a few of these. So many of these are again way too early, and he even said that in his post. But here's his 3 sleeper teams going into this season: the Arizona Cardinals, the Las Vegas Raiders, and Miami Dolphins are 3 sleeper teams going into 2022. I would have to wholeheartedly agree. There's a lot of buzz around Miami. Mike McDaniel coming in. He's got his coaching staff set. He's had the conversation with Tua. They're keeping Waddle. They have the most cap space ever. But Waddle. But here's the thing. Does Miami find a way to botch everything in their favor? You look at some of the coaches he's hired. He hired the quarterback's coach from Jacksonville, the Jaguars. Don't think that was a smart move, given his track record.
Now, I'm also looking at the Raiders.
Yeah.
That's an interesting pick for a sleeper team. They've actually done pretty good this past season, despite only limping their way into the wild card.
Yeah.
And they had heart. I mean,
Right.
all that, despite everything that happened within that season.
Right. And then, of course, the Arizona Cardinals, I think they're a sleeper team. I don't think there'll be anything that's...
All right, what else does this guy has said?
So 3 playoff locks. These are the 3 teams he thinks that are a shoe-in for the playoffs no matter what.
Okay.
The Tennessee Titans, the Buffalo Bills, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't know about Tennessee, but KC and Buffalo I would definitely have to agree with. Tennessee, I think they've kind of overshot the runway. I think they need to go back to the drawing board and fix a few things.
Yeah, especially in the air attack.
Yeah.
And all that. I think their air attack, despite having King Derrick Henry on the field in that game,
Right.
they didn't. I didn't think they utilized him that well. But then again, they're probably worried about rust and all
Right,
that. So.
of course. And then here is his 3 rebuild teams. So these are the teams that are in total rebuild mode: the New Orleans Saints, the Houston Texans, and surprise, surprise, they're always in rebuild mode: the Detroit Lions.
I have faith in Dan Campbell.
Yeah, you think he's going to restore the roar there in Detroit?
He's going to do something.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and then here is his 3 one piece away. So these 3 teams are just 1 player away being in the right position for them making the playoffs and potentially going to a Super Bowl. The Indianapolis Colts, the Denver Broncos,
Okay.
and the Cleveland Browns.
Oh.
I have very mixed emotions right now.
Describe your emotions for me.
Cleveland Browns, 3 one-piece away teams? No, maybe rebuild mode.
Now, keep in mind, look at the last two years that the Browns have.
Mm-hmm.
They made it through the wild card, beat
Okay.
their arch nemesis, the Steelers, in a wild card game.
Steelers.
Their first wild card win in a very long time. And they put up a great match against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round.
This is true.
And they had a lot to show for it. But this past year, they were trying to get that motion back.
Right.
But something fell off.
Yeah.
And I think their biggest mistake was playing Baker Mayfield with all those injuries he has stacked up. It just ruined the offense, in my opinion. And I'm sure there are other factors like OBJ leaving them and all that. Turns out it wasn't him, it was them.
Yeah.
But my gut's telling me that the Cleveland Browns can make another run into the playoffs.
Okay.
But will they?
That is the question. There will be a big question mark right there is will they. And Smitty, I see we're running out of time, so I figured we'd wrap this up. These are each of the last 16 quarterbacks to lose in their Super Bowl debut and have never made it back to the big game as a starter. So this list is the most recent 16 to lose in a Super Bowl debut and that have never made it back.
Yikes.
Jimmy Garoppolo,
Makes sense.
Jared Goff,
Makes sense.
Matt Ryan, Cam Newton,
I'm sorry.
Colin Kaepernick, Rex Grossman,
Don't know that one.
Chicago Bears, Rex Grossman from Florida,
Oh, okay.
Matt Hasselbeck, Seattle Seahawks. I believe that was the 05 Super Bowl they lost to the Steelers.
That's right, yeah.
Yep. Donovan McNabb, Philadelphia Eagles, also lost. I want to say he also lost a Super Bowl.
I think he lost to the
Patriots. Huh?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Jake Delhomme with the Carolina Panthers. That was to the Patriots also. That was like one of the early to mid-2000s Super Bowls.
Okay.
Rich Gannon with the Oakland Raiders.
Uh-huh.
Kerry Collins with the New York Giants. Steve Mcnair, Tennessee Titans. You remember Steve McNair, number 9?
Oh, that was the
Rams Super Bowl in '99.
Yeah, that was the greatest show on turf.
Yep. Chris Chandler, Atlanta Falcons. Drew Bledsoe, New England Patriots.
Ooh.
Neil O'Donnell, for all you Pittsburgh faithful out there, Neil O'Donnell. And, of course, Stan Humphries with the then San Diego Chargers. Those quarterbacks that I just named were the last 16 quarterbacks to debut in the Super Bowl, lose, and have never went back. So, Smitty, I want to end today's episode by saying, does Burrow make it back to the big dance?
My heart's telling me yes. But are the Bengals going to screw it up for him?
There's going to be a big...
Because there's a reason why they have the nickname the Bungles.
Well, I definitely think they have a lot that they need to work on in the offseason because it's so heartbreaking to know that you made it when people swore up and down during the divisional, there's no way you're going to make it. Well, then you get past it, and then you make it all the way to the conference championship. Oh, you're going to lose out here, and you make it past that. You're thinking, why not go on and win it? I would probably rather lose out in the divisional or the AFC championship game than to get all the way to the Super Bowl and lose because that right there really takes the wind out of your sails.
True, but that's just I believe that's just more motivation for them to get up, brush off the dust, recollect themselves, and go forward again. They have the talent, they have the coach, they have the staff.
Yeah.
Can they repeat? That is the ultimate question. Only time will tell when the new season starts.
Yeah, because we could be sitting here talking about two totally different teams at the end of this next coming season. If you'd have told me before the start of the 2021 season that Cincinnati and LA was going to be in the Super Bowl, I'd have been like, there's no way. I just don't see it. Because Burrow was coming off of that, was it an ACL he tore in 2020? I mean, his rookie year. And he actually surprised me with the way he finished in the postseason. So that's just a little tidbit of history there. Smitty, who are you pegging to go to the Super Bowl next year? Who are your two teams? The Super Bowl is going to be in Glendale, Arizona next year.
No, it's definitely not going to be the Cardinals unless they fluke it their way in.
I'm about to say, unless I'm missing something here, because Super Bowl was in Tampa Bay in the 2020 season. Tampa Bay went. Super Bowl was in L.A. this year, and L.A. went. So Do we potentially see the Cardinals go this year?
After their performance this year, probably not.
Yeah, probably not. How do you think Pittsburgh's going to do, Smitty?
Well, they're not going to beat the Bengals.
Probably not. You're probably right. Maybe in a couple years it might happen, but we're in rebuild mode.
Oh, you're so pessimistic.
Insert terrible towel here.
Yeah, yep.
And that's all the time we have for today. Chipola Nation, thanks so much for making this podcast a success. We also want to thank the awesome media team here at Chipola College. As told earlier, please be sure to check out the website for any further information or inquiries. Smitty, thanks talking some football, my guy.
Yep.
Yep, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take it easy.